Agenda item 17, addressing anticipated shortages of public safety officers in the San Diego region. This was an item brought forward by Supervisors Anderson and Desmond. Let me ask them first if they would like to make any introductory comments before we go to the public speakers in this item.
I would.
Please, you and
Okay.
then right. You can like arm wrestle for who goes first. It doesn't matter to me, but you're both welcome to have at it.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Last year, the San Diego Police Officers Association in September did a poll, and they found that when they instituted the vaccine mandate, 45% of the officers said that they would rather be fired than comply. When I was vice chair of public safety in the state legislature, what many people didn't understand, and I didn't know until I got there, was that we have a regional mutual aid agreement, just like firefighters do, where we send firefighters to LA to put out fires when it's an emergency. In LA and in Fresno and everyone else will send firefighters down to help us fight the fire. The Sheriff's Department is the regional mutual aid coordinator. So if a local law enforcement doesn't have enough officers, we potentially could backfill it. Well, we've seen a 14% surge in violent crime. We've seen a 15% in the last 2 years attrition rate at our sheriff's department here, just our own local sheriffs. And then we've also, over the last year, seen a decrease of 25% in the amount of folks that are applying to become a deputy sheriff. So my concern, and I don't want to speak for Supervisor Desmond, but I think he shares this, was that we maybe, sometime in the near future, be caught with not enough deputies, not enough officers, and I'm deeply concerned that we're not going to have the coverage. And, I live in rural San Diego County, unincorporated. We rely on those sheriffs, and it's so important that those deputies are there for us when we need them most. And I also represent a large portion, more of San Diego City than I ever did before. And I know that those residents that we reached out to, in fact, we did a quick poll out into my district, over 700 people responded, and 99% of them said that they were deeply concerned about their public safety. They wanted to know that when they went to bed at night, that they would wake up safely in the morning and that their families would be safe. So instead of waiting until things get worse or an emergency occurs, I wanted to get out ahead of it. So essentially what this is doing is asking to work with the Sheriff's Department, our CAO, come up with a plan in 180 days or sooner, and just be ahead of the curve. Make sure that we have, that we're prepared on the public safety side. Now, having said that, I think it's important to distinguish, because I know that a lot of the folks in my district are going to call my office. So I just want to make sure they know that the sheriffs are not mandated to get a vaccine. However, if they don't get vaccinated, they have to have weekly tests. And I think that that's reasonable, and I support that. But everybody in my district deserves to feel safe and to be safe. And that's what this is about. It's about ensuring that we have enough deputies and enough officers on the street available to protect us. And by the way, this is not just about sworn officers, but non-sworn too. We have a lot of folks that do the backup, that support the deputies and the officers in the streets. We need to make sure that no harm comes to any of our constituents that can be avoided. So that's essentially it in a nutshell.
Thank you. Supervisor Desmond.
If that was a motion, I'll second it.
All right, we'll take that as a motion in a second.
Well, I just want to say thank you very much, Supervisor Anderson, for your work on this board letter and for asking me to partner on this. It's simple. We got a fiduciary responsibility to the contract cities. We've got Del Mar, Encinitas, Imperial Beach, Lemon Grove, Poway, San Marcos, Santee, Solana Beach, and Vista, all are contract cities with the sheriff's deputies, including all those that we serve in the unincorporated areas. And we have to ensure that we have adequate and proper staffing for sworn and non-sworn personnel. Supervisor Anderson mentioned violent crime is on the rise by double digits, and it's imperative that we retain and recruit sheriff's deputies to maintain our obligated staffing levels. I was asked, are we safe now? Yes, I think we're safe now, but we don't want to get to that critically low level to where, we're below what we need to keep people safe. So public safety it's critical to the citizens of our county, and taking the time to do this staffing assessment to help guide us in future decisions, I think is a great idea, and I'll double second my motion. So thank you.
So I appreciate all the efforts to keep our community safe, but I think this board letter is a little premature and is missing information that we need to make an informed decision. I'm a little concerned that the public is being misguided about our policies as it relates to the Sheriff's Department and vaccines. And having said that, the board letter is being presented just as there's a shift in leadership in the Sheriff's Department. In November, a new sheriff will be elected by its citizens of San Diego, and the voters and the new elected sheriff should have a chance to define the vision for the Sheriff's Department, including staffing. Our Sheriff's Department has been under scrutiny, and rightfully so, for handling of persons in our custody, and this concerns me when we know that there is many shortcomings in the department that would help alleviate the stress of the system as a whole. Honestly, our criminal justice system and policing systems need a fundamental change where humane, restorative, and rehabilitative justice, as well as effective public safety, are prioritized. If we really truly want to address public safety, we need to look at the ways we can invest in locally developed equity-based solutions that take a balanced approach to protecting public safety, including diversion, drug treatment, reentry programs, mental health services. And I think that as a county, we've made some strides. But in order to truly address public safety, we must ensure comprehensive support of other public safety partners, probation department, public defender's office, and our county-funded youth programs that focus on intervention in the forthcoming assessment. So these agencies and programs are crucial partners in our public safety and are often overlooked. They are similarly in need of funding and recruitment and retention efforts. So in order for us to address public safety, then we must do so in a holistic approach for the county efforts to make our community safer. The only way I can support this board letter is to ask if there is a willingness to accept a friendly amendment to include the probation department, public defender's office, and our county-funded youth programs in the forthcoming assessment. The amendment would be direct the chief administrative officer to return to the board in 180 days or as soon as practical with updates and recommendations related to recruitment planning and funding strategies that support the Sheriff's Department, probation department, public defender's office, and our county-funded youth intervention programs, having the critical personnel necessary to protect San Diego County's incorporated and unincorporated residents.
Let me go to the maker of the motion. Are you willing to accept the amendment to add probation, public defenders, and county-funded youth services?
I have a helicopter overhead. Hold on for just a second.
Give it a minute.
You probably can hear me, but it's hard to hear you. So, look, I think that every one of those departments is important. I think that that is crucial. I absolutely support making sure that they're fully funded, but they're not under mutual aid. They're not, when we think in terms of an increase in crime in our communities, we have a 14% surge in violent crime. They're part of the solution after they're in the system or avoiding the system.
I would disagree.
They're super important, and I absolutely support. What I'd like to do is I'd like to do a board letter with you, Supervisor Vargas, because I think they're equally important. But there's a distinction between mutual aid and not mutual aid. And these don't have anything to do with mutual aid, but they're equally important. And I think that they should, instead of confusing the issue, not getting through any of it, I'd love to do a second letter with you to address them in their individual needs completely. So I'm 100% on board. The other thing is, perhaps we could ask the CAO. So the sheriff really doesn't control them, and having the sheriff involved on a board letter with them is, in the legislature, you had to keep all your legislation on the same. You couldn't do something on parks and on healthcare and on, it all had to be in the same venue. So I'd love to do that with the others because they don't have regional mutual aid. But you know what? let's ask our CAO.
Actually, just for clarification, they all fall under the same department under public safety. And so I think when we bring the budget forth, they all come under public safety. So I understand that you're not comfortable with accepting those amendments. And if you can't, that's fine. I don't want to do a separate board letter. This is what I would recommend, because I think what we're doing here is we're not looking at the root of the problem, which is addressing crime. So staffing the sheriff's department is not addressing crime. The way we're going to address crime is to look at the root of the problem. And the challenge is that what we're doing is we're saying to people right now is that, if you hear the comments of folks who are sharing with us, is that they're addressing vaccinations to the lack of recruitment and et cetera. And those are apples and oranges, right? I served on the board of Southwestern College, where we actually focused on recruitment and retention and we had a great partnership with all of our police departments and sheriffs. And I have been a big proponent of ensuring that we always had, our police officers from our communities, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not opposed to that. And I'm not opposed to ensuring that we have adequate staffing. But what I want to do is I want this board to do the right thing and to begin to look at the justice system from a lens of really a holistic perspective. And if we're going to do that, we need to look at an assessment of an overall of how we are actually looking at the criminal justice system. And that includes probation, the public defenders, and our youth intervention program. So totally understand different philosophies, different values. So I'm not able to support the board letter, but I understand your comments.
Let me just ask quickly.
Nathan, I wasn't finished.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
I didn't want to interrupt Supervisor Vargas, but I wasn't finished when she jumped in. And I get it's an emotional issue and you want to get there. I'm not opposed to this. I support restorative justice. I think that what you're talking about is different than what I'm talking about, in the sense that I live in an unincorporated area. I have constituents in an unincorporated area that shouldn't feel unsafe at night because there's no deputy to show up when they call 911. And so this is about making sure that there's deputies to show up under 911. It's not about the justice system. And I'm happy to look. And that's why, doing a separate letter, I'm all in. I absolutely support that. But what I wanted to finish with is I will gladly accept these amendments to get you there, because I want to work as a team and I don't want to seem like a bully. And I'm not going to be bullying you on anything that I'm trying to do. If I can get there, I want to get there. Why don't we ask the CAO right now if she can accomplish both goals in the same letter without diluting the fact. And by the way, facts are facts. The fact that the city of San Diego has chosen to force mandate their employees, and we haven't forced our employees, changes the outcome. But at the end of the day, with under mutual aid, we have to backstop them. So we need to have a plan to backstop them. I'm not saying what they're doing is right or wrong. They were elected in their districts. I wasn't. However, when it impacts my constituents and their personal safety, I have a fiduciary responsibility. I'm not sure fiduciary is the correct term. I have a public safety responsibility. So with that in mind, let's ask Helen, or the CAO, and ask her if she can accomplish both goals. But at the end of the day, I don't want to lose you, but at the same token, I'm doing this based on the regional mutual aid agreement. And none of those other groups have mutual aid, and none of the other groups fall under while it's public safety, it's not the sheriff's responsibilities. So, Chair Fletcher, maybe
let's ask the CAO if we could accomplish both of these goals, both the suggestions Vice Chair Vargas has made about what to add, along with the intent behind Supervisor Anderson's initial effort.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher and Supervisor Anderson and Vice Chair Vargas. We will definitely be able to do that, notwithstanding what Supervisor Anderson wants. We understand that, the mutual aid aspect. We can address that and also address the probation and the public defender request of the Vice Chair.
Child Youth Services. Okay. So Supervisor Anderson, you're comfortable adding those in, consistent with what the CAO just outlined, that we would add in to also analyze and look at recruiting and retention for public defenders, probation, and county youth services?
I am comfortable doing it. I support restorative justice. I want to look at it in a holistic way, but I don't want to dilute
Understood.
the fear that is in my district that we're not going to have deputies who show up when we call 911.
Yeah. But I think to the CAO's point, we can accomplish
Yeah,
both.
I agree.
Let me ask the seconder of the motion too. Are you okay accepting the friendly amendment Supervisor Anderson has agreed to accept?
Yeah, but I guess my only concern, can we do the sheriff's first and then get that report out and then do the rest of them is kind of, I don't want to slow it down. And I agree. I actually is okay with Supervisor Vargas's motion, but is that going to, I don't want to.
I would think, let's ask our CAO if they can accomplish them at the same speed simultaneous, just having a few more folks work on it, if that's possible.
Chair Fletcher, Holly Porter, Public Safety Group. Yes, we can come back at the same time with that. We have the vacancy rates for the Public Safety Group departments, and we can work with Human Resources to address actions that we can take that will improve those situations.
Well, if I may finish, I just want to make sure that you can bring them all back at the same time, but by doing them all, is that going to slow you down on the sheriff's portion of it? Because I'd like to get that as soon as possible.
Supervisor Desmond, I think we can work with Human Resources and look at actions that we can take, across the board in all of those departments simultaneously. In terms of recruitment and retention efforts.
Supervisor Desmond.
Down, I guess.
Helen.
Hey, you said it's slicing the elephant. We're eating it all at once, I guess. The way I'm looking at it.
Supervisor Desmond, let me just jump in here and assure you that we will accommodate the schedule. We will not delay.
Okay, that's what I was looking for. Thank you.
Good. Okay, so we've got a amended motion and second. Let's go to Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
I have a number of comments to make. I first just really wanted to begin with some questions to staff based on the board letter. Much of the board letter looked at the challenges that the city of San Diego is facing. And obviously we're not the city of San Diego, right? We're the county with our sheriffs and face my understanding is that our sheriffs have been doing a great job with recruitment and retention in the past. And there's just only one little mention that actually directly addressed the sheriff's department as opposed to the city of San Diego in the board letter. It mentioned that we've had a 15% decline, a 15% increase in retirement and a 25% decline in applications. But that didn't necessarily translate to me that we actually have a recruitment and retention problem in the sheriff's department. So I think obviously, it's public safety is vitally important. And I want to say a few other comments after this, but I just want to make sure that we're actually focused on a problem that exists here at the county, as opposed to a problem with the city of San Diego. So this is a question for staff. And if the answer is we don't know, then I would just like to ensure that an assessment of whether or not we have a recruitment and retention problem is included in that report back, so that we don't assume the answer to the question.
Thank you, Supervisor Lawson-Remer. I had an opportunity to look at that pretty closely last night after our discussion that you and I had yesterday. And we do have some significant issues. Holly, would you like to report out on some of the data for the supervisor?
Sure, thank you, Helen. Supervisor Lawson-Remer, if you look at the hiring statistics for the Sheriff's Department over the last couple of years, and I think this really highlights what they're concerned about, attrition has exceeded the number of individuals that they've been able to hire in the past 2 years. And they're also concerned about the number of applicants that they're getting in, which has decreased really significantly over the past few years. So for example, if you compare 2021, the number of applications that they received, it's 40% less than they received in 2016, or 36% less, for example, than they received in 2017. So fewer people are applying, and looking at the trend over the past couple of years, again, with more people leaving than they're getting in the door. It is a lengthy process, 12 to 14 months to get a deputy, boots on the ground because of the academy and the training that's involved. And so they're seeing trends that are concerning.
Great. I really thank you so much. That's extremely helpful, and I really appreciate you taking the time to provide some more information. You know, I just want to appreciate the issues brought up in this board letter, and also uplift my colleague Supervisor Vargas's amendment, which I strongly support. I think everyone deserves to feel safe in their communities, and this means ensuring that the people who serve in our communities are adequately equipped, that we have recruitment, we have retention, that we have adequate staffing, and that is a fact across all of our individuals who are in the front lines on public safety. And you know, when we look at how do we protect our communities and ensure an adequate staffing, there's lots of ways, right? One of them is to do what we've been doing with this board over the last year, which is to make sure we have mobile crisis response teams so that officers are not called to things that they shouldn't be called in, but they're actually able to respond to crimes in their communities. And so some of this work is also looking at ensuring that we're adequately staffed across the board in terms of our mental and behavioral health, in addition to our patrols on the streets, so we can keep our patrol officers focused on the right things. But some of this is also, as Supervisor Vargas correctly pointed out, ensures that we're being staffed in probation, in public defenders, because another way that we keep people safe is ensuring that they don't commit crimes in the first place. And that is a very vital component of public safety. I mean, there's one thing to run to the fire to put it out after the fire's already been lit. But I personally would strongly agree with Supervisor Vargas that it is preferable to prevent the fire from being started in the first place. And I think that's what she's getting at. And I think that this approach of trying to, get ahead of our recruitment and retention problems in a holistic way across all of the individuals who are committed to serving our communities and keeping our communities safe, it makes a lot of sense. And I know that I strongly support doing what we can to protect public safety in a holistic way. And I appreciate both the makers of the original motion as well as my colleague with her amendment. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you. We've got a motion by Supervisor Anderson, second by Supervisor Desmond. And, I think we've had a good discussion here as a board. Look, there's real concerns about keeping communities safe. And as a county, we want to keep people safe. We have continued to fund law enforcement. We've also taken efforts and actions to fund restorative justice and preventive things and efforts to do both, because you can and you have to do both. But there are real staffing issues that are taking place across law enforcement, and I think that the numbers bear that out as a reality. And so we want to do whatever we can to look at what can be done to better serve and protect, both protecting people from violent crime and structurally looking at how we can invest in things upstream to lower the conditions and situations later. And so I think we're taking a holistic approach at this, and I appreciate all the discussion, the changes, the initial item brought forward and everything. And I think we're in a very good place as a board to send a strong signal about keeping our community safe and investing in our communities at the same time. So with that, we've got a motion and a second. Let me ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you. Supervisor Anderson.
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond.
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas.
Vargas, aye.
Chair Fletcher.
Fletcher, aye.
The motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.